All right, hello everyone. My name's Rob. I'm with Precodecamp.com, and in this video we're going to be talking about functions and do a little bit of practice with functions and parameters and getting return values from it. And just a little precursor here is I'm in Visual Studio Code. You don't have to use Visual Studio Code at all. You can use your own IDE. However, if you are interested in utilizing my type of setup that you see right here and the extensions that I'm going to be using, please feel free to check out the videos that I have in the description below. All right. Okay. So in here, it says we're going to create a function that will help determine the last angle of the triangle. This function will accept two parameters, right? Because interior angles of a triangle, we need 3. And put a little hint in here for us all, since it's been a while for any geometry to be done for some folks, to include myself. All angles that we have inside of a triangle, they should total up to 180. So if I have 2 angles and if I subtract that from 180, I should get the last angle. So that's going to be the thought process here on how we're going to tackle that. So again, we're going to be creating a function. Let's go ahead and do that. And we're going to start off with that keyword of function. And then we need a name for this. And I'm just going to call it getLastAngle. And inside here, I'm going to put in 2 placeholders for our parameters. I'm going to do angle 1 and angle 2. Okay. Now that we have our function, I know that we can probably do this with a single return statement, but as beginner coders, I'm always telling people, hey, let's stub this out. We can do it in as little as 1 line, but I think for thought processing, we should stub this out on how you would tackle it as a human, right? And so the first thing that I would do as a human is I would take the 2 angles that I'm getting in to this function, and I'm going to add them up, okay? So I'm just going to put in here, let total equal angle 1 plus angle 2, all right? And so that now in memory, with these 2 angles coming in, if I do 60 and 60, that's 120. I now have 120 to work with for my total. Okay. And then the next thing that we need to do, if we're thinking about this logically, is we need to create another variable, maybe call it last angle. So let's do that. Let last angle. Cool. Well, what did I say at the beginning for the hint, right? All angles, they will need to total 180. So if I start off with 180 and I subtract the 2 angles that I already have, and that's called total, I now have my last angle here, right? So if you imagine an equilateral triangle, 60-degree angles, they should all be 60, right? And so 120, if we subtract that from 180, we get 60. So our math is right so far. And then a function just needs to return something. So we're going to do return, and we're going to put in here the last angle. All right. Now, as beginners, and we're going through functions, if we were to just save this and run this, we're not going to get anything whatsoever. And that's because we didn't call the function, right? So let's call the function. Now we do that by simply finding the name that we gave it, and then we supply it what it needs. Okay, so that's going to be an example of that. So let's do a get last angle, and we're going to supply in there our first example here. We'll do 60, 60. Okay. Now we know mathematically in our minds that this should return us 60. Now I'm always telling students this is when we are calling it, right? And we're running it, we still don't see anything in our console or in our code runner, right? And so the reason behind that is we haven't really console logged anything, right? It's running the function just fine, but we're not seeing that in our terminal. So how do we get that? Well, we can either wrap this entire thing in a console log, right? That works. But traditionally, whenever we use functions, we want to store them in a variable. And so what I can do here is I can say let triangle 1 equal, and then right below this, I can console log the triangle. So now that I have these lines of code here, I can go ahead and save this, and I can run this. And now I get 60. Well, what happens if I change one of my angles to 35? And I save that, and I run it. Now I get 85. So that last angle of that triangle needs to be 85, right? So the total needs to equate to 180, okay? Otherwise, it's not going to be considered a triangle, okay? Now, we didn't put any errors into our function for handling these types of values of what happens if it's over 180. We're assuming that the user did input the correct numbers. Now, like I told you before, hey, can this all be done in a single return statement? And again, yeah, it can. And what would that look like if we were to refactor this? And so I'll just put down here function refactored, get last angle. Okay, and we're still going to do angle 1 and angle 2, and it's going to look exactly the same as what we did up above. But this time, we can just knock this all out with a single return statement. Okay, so we got the return, and instead of doing the total up here and then the last angle, we can simply do 180 minus, and then these two angles here, right? So we can, in your mind, we can take the 180 and we can subtract these two angles, okay? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and save that, and then we can test this out. I'm gonna do a let triangle 2 equal, and then it's gonna be the refactored last angle. And let's do our 60, 60, and then let me spell triangle properly. And then we'll go ahead and do a console log of triangle 2. Okay, so I'll save that, run it, and then we have our 60 that you see right there. So again, as we're learning, as we're growing, I would expect this from like beginners. And then as you are progressing, then you can start thinking, well, I can refactor this, I can make it less lines of code. But either way, still fine. We're all learning. So hey, thanks again for watching this tutorial. Definitely appreciate it. Feel free to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.